Hello, and welcome to another edition of Ask an Anthropologist about world building. Today, I have a very special guest, Jenny Frontera, and she's going to talk to us all about horses. Quick bio, and then we're going to dive into some stuff. Jenny Frontera's love of science fiction and fantasy originated with her early exposure to Star Wars, Star Trek, Lord of the Rings, and Dune. Exploring humanity's potential and pitfalls in future or fantastical worlds is a temptation she's just never been able to resist. And horses. Well, she's obsessed with horses for as long as she can remember. She lives in rural Missouri with her husband, son, and more animals than she'd prefer to disclose, though one of them is definitely a horse. She's been able to tell her stories in one form or another since she could hold a crayon and draw. She co-founded Kansas City local writing group known as the Word Wraiths in 2014 and is co-owner of their publishing imprint Word Wraith Books, as well as the newly minted multimedia branch Word Wraith Studios, which will be producing her first short film later this year. When she's not writing, momming, or working at her full-time day job, she's often on horseback riding, playing video games, or cosplaying. I guess my question with that is like, are you on the horse when you're playing the video games?
I do play video games with horses in them, and then I go out in real life and ride horses. So I do that, but I haven't yet tried to game while riding. That would be a new challenge, I feel like.
So tell us a little bit about this film project, because I know that's kind of on its way, right?
Yes. We actually just yesterday sent out the basically we went through all the people who submitted for our two lead roles, and so we just sent out the request for auditions to our finalists literally like yesterday. So I'm very excited because this has been trying to happen for about 2 years now and we're finally actually like getting the ball rolling. So
Yeah, I've done freelance video work for like 20 some years, and I did some documentary films. Part of my graduate research was a documentary film, which you guys can find on my channel, Unbound: The Story of the Romero Theater Troupe. It's about resistance against dominant media narratives. So I know what it's like to do all that stuff. I mean, my graduate, my main film was a 2-year project, and then I also did another film during grad school that was a 2-year project, and it's like, and sometimes it's just like it takes that long to get it off the ground. It's tough. So
yeah, it's like yeah, I was telling someone the other day, it's sort of like herding cats on crack. So it's like even worse than you would think. It's just like, yeah, to try to get everyone like going at the same time is quite a challenge.
I know. I mean, when I've done a number of short form and long form documentaries now, and like there was one guy I had to do an interview for 7 times he canceled, and he was like a key interview for the whole documentary.
My word.
Like one time I show up into his door and he was like, I'm too high on mushrooms right now. I can't do it. And I'm like, all right, dude. We'll come back another day.
Like, come on, dude. It's like, you knew. Really, you had to do this today.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
That's
so
how it
people,
goes.
you never know what you're gonna get when you're making a
Nope.
film. As scripted is a little different than than a documentary, but
That's
because you
true.
never know what's coming with a documentary, right?
That is true. That is true.
But
Definitely an extra challenge there.
yeah, but there are challenges to having scripted work, like actors. They tend to be interesting people.
Yes, they do.
So.
Actors will be actors.
So tell us a little bit about horses. Like, so as long as you can remember, you've been obsessed. Like, how long have you been riding and working with horses?
Well, when I was a small child, my mom actually still had her pony that she
Hmm.
had when she was younger. He was, a pretty old guy by that time, but his name was Smokey Joe, and he was a little mini pony. And she would take us out, as small children to see Smokey. So I think that probably started it. Just, he was just so cute. And so I just sort of fell in love with him right then. And she grew up with horses as well. So she sort of, was always around them. And then my grandma actually drew horses like just phenomenally. So I would just write, this part where the writing came in. I would just write these little stories about horses. And then I'd be like, here, grandma, can you illustrate this for me? And she would. And I just loved it so much. I love those little stories. But yeah, there was a period of time after Smokey died, and then we like kind of moved to a different town. And so then there was a period of time where I didn't have horses directly in my life, but I read like the entire Black Stallion series. There's another young adult series that was the Saddle Club. I read that whole series. So every book about a horse, I would read it. So I read every horse book in between in the years I didn't actually have a horse. And then for my 16th birthday, I was moping about not having horses in my life still. And I told my mom, I'm like, I don't want a car, I want a horse. And she actually got me a horse for my 16th birthday.
Wow.
And I was so excited. So excited. So that started the horses again. And I have actually had a horse in my life since I was 16, and I am a lot older than that now. And I actually still have my horse. Unfortunately, the first horse I got when I was 16, he ended up not really working out for us. So I got a different horse and loved her to death for a few years till I got into college. And then unfortunately she got sick and we had to put her down. And then I got another horse, and that horse I actually still have to this day. He is 31 years old. So
How long do they live?
They can live up to 40, like early 40s, but that's kind of rare. Actually, 31, he's doing real good at this point. So usually it's around like mid 20s. Like if a horse gets to 30, that's pretty impressive. And he's 31 and he's still going. So yeah, he's just a pasture pet now. He just gets to, eat and be brushed. But
he gets all the pets in his retirement, huh?
Yep, he's got a chill retirement now. He's just living it up. So, but I love still having him. So, I'm like, you're not going anywhere. You're gonna be with me till you die. So.
Yeah, I have very limited experiences with horses. I grew up mostly a city person or suburb person, but I did ride horses a couple of times in my life. One of them was through the Garden of Gods in Colorado Springs, and if you guys don't know, it's this incredible national park, historically sacred tribal land that was, another example of the public park system taking the land from the indigenous people. But it was an incredible ride, and I also had the, let's say, unfortunate experience of riding a camel around the pyramids of Egypt. That was a very different experience, and I remember having saddle sores from horses, but like camel sores are a whole different thing. I couldn't even get through the ride. Like halfway through I was in so much uncomfortable pain from the hump and the way the saddle is structured that I got down, and like my guide, who was like, they walk alongside you with the horse or whatever. So he's like sitting there and he's like, "Oh, you don't want to get back up on the ride?" And I had signed up for like the very longest route around the pyramids because I thought I wanted to really get the experience.
Yeah.
So I walked the whole second half. It was like 4 or 5 miles, and and I was just like, never mind.
It's worth it to just watch.
But they were definitely talking to each other in Arabic, my guide and the other person's guide, and like they were definitely making fun of me.
Yeah, probably making fun of you. Yeah.
Yeah. So
you're like, I don't know what to tell you. I'm not getting back up there.
Right. I was like, I couldn't. For the next day and a half, I could not walk around. So.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I have not ridden, a camel aside from, like the zoo rides or something that's like a little circle. But
right. Or
my
a
mom
Ren fair.
actually just went to Egypt a few months ago and did the camel ride. I don't think theirs was too long. She didn't mention it being in pain at least, but She
Yeah.
did mention that they were pretty stinky, so that's the tidbit I got from her on that.
Oh, yeah. So speaking of all that, let's dispel some myths before we open up the floor for questions. I do see we have a couple questions already in the chat. Now is the time to get your questions in about horses and horse training and domestication and all that stuff. And we're going to do our segment I call jokingly a bone to pick. So, Jenny, what bones to pick do you have about media's presentation of horses, horse riding, horse training, anything to do with horses?
Yes. No. Crack knuckles, no. Just kidding. But I am very excited to bring up the number one bone to pick that I have. I made a handy list so I wouldn't forget any, but the number one was not easy to forget. Well, I didn't really have to worry about forgetting this one because this is the one I see the most probably across the board. And it's for books, and it is the fact that I don't know how this happens, but it does. I have seen it multiple times. Authors who are writing books in a Western setting, it's usually contemporary, like cowboy romance. It's usually what I've seen this on. The cover will feature a horse, and the horse has the wrong kind of saddle on. So the book is clearly being marketed as like, a cowboy romance. And in general, you think a cowboy is along the Western track. And so you would think there would be a Western saddle on the horse, but there is not. So that makes me extremely upset. So I'm sure that doesn't do any favors for getting that book to actually be picked up by its intended audience either. And I'm not exactly sure how that happens because I feel like it's pretty easy to just Google like
Yeah.
saddle types. The only thing I can figure is that the author maybe doesn't know what they don't know, and they're just assuming that a saddle is a saddle. And their cover designer probably sends them a horse with the saddle on, and they're like, yeah, okay, that works.
Well,
But
yeah.
holy moly, it does not work, people. It does not work. And so I actually brought some show and tell along so that I can just show a quick example of how many different saddle types there are and how very important it is to know which saddle you should be using in your book. Yeah, because they're drastically different. So I'm glad we tested this. I know how to do this now. So
Yeah.
let me bring
Yeah.
up my
And
show and tell.
is the audio better? I adjusted it. Someone said that I'm way
Oh,
louder
okay.
than you, so I'm just
Oh,
adjusting. So if it
I can
is,
also
just let
scoot
me know.
mine. I can get a little closer maybe too. I'm not sure the mic in my computer is the best either, so that probably doesn't help. But okay, so let me do my screen here. My picture. Okay, can you see the picture of the saddles?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so this is just an example of the Western style saddles, mind you. This isn't even covering all the other kind of saddles, but I'll get to that here in a second. But as you can see, if you're writing a book with somebody who is going to like Western pleasure shows, you're going to have a saddle like this. You see all this nice bling here? It's beautiful. And
Lots of
then,
leather
if they're,
tooling.
yes, they're gorgeous. The ranch saddles obviously, are a thing, but then you have, roping saddles usually actually have a thicker horn than this too. This one doesn't. But if you ever see a saddle that has like a real thick horn, that's probably a roping saddle because they rope the cows and they twist the rope around the horn, right? So they want a nice sturdy one there. Oh, here, the barrel saddle has a very deep seat and usually a taller, skinnier horn. That's because when you're going around the barrels really fast, they usually grab onto it, sort of like a handle, hang on for dear life because your horse is booking it. So, yeah. And then you have the endurance saddles, which do look quite different from the other ones. See how the horn here is different. So again, please,
Oh,
no, what
mounted
saddle
shooting
you
too.
see. Yes, mounted shooting is very interesting as well. I don't know if you guys know what that is, but if you don't, you should look it up. Cowboy mounted shooting. My mom
Okay.
actually did that for a little bit. So
Is that
it's very
is that
fun.
like what kind of saddle would the Mongols use in this case?
Ooh, that's a good question. I could look up. So theirs is going to look different than these. Let me find my other picture. I don't have a particular Mongol saddle that I saved. But again, Google is your friend. If you just Google saddle types, which is obviously how I found these pictures. But you can find some very good examples online, like on Pinterest and stuff. Can you guys see this one now?
Zoom in a little
Okay.
bit.
Yeah, that one's really small. Okay, the words are kind of blurry. So this one also, well, here's a Persian saddle. So this is an old style one. So the Mongol saddles are sort of similar to this. They're a little bit different, but sort of structured like that. But you can also see how there's these different, like this is a dressage saddle, cavalry saddle. An English saddle looks almost just like the dressage saddle. Usually the saddles I'm seeing on these covers are like an English saddle like this. So that's not what your cowboy is going to be riding on the ranch. Really not correct. Oh, here's a Roman saddle. Here you go. So it's going to be more like these two.
So just in brief, like what exactly do the different saddles like what why do you have different saddles? Because that's the question that I don't like. I can see there's definitely differences, and obviously I can conceive of the idea that you would want a different saddle if you're going to be riding hundreds of miles over the course of a month versus like if you're racing. Like that makes
Yes,
sense, but
right.
why?
Yes. So I didn't save the racing saddle picture. I should have because it's so tiny. But obviously for the racing saddle, so like here's an English saddle, right? So with a lot of the English disciplines, like the things that people who write English are doing is it's a lot of arena stuff usually, like the jumpers, like if you see the like steeplechases or the show jumpers or that kind of thing, it's sort of it's athletic, which not saying you can't do athletic stuff in a Western saddle because they have all kinds of stuff people are doing in Western saddles, but there's a lot less to them. They're a lot lighter. So it's the horse tends to have like more flexibility and movement in the English saddle, and then obviously it's less weight on them. Versus with these Western style stuff, a lot of this is also athletic, I mean, cutting. They're Cutting is where they're trying to separate one cow from the rest of the herd. So the horse is like, you know, I think that's some crazy movements right there, really fast stuff. But when you're doing stuff like that, you want this seat sort of cradling you more because it helps you stay seated on the horse. So if you're in an English saddle and your horse jerks to the side to say, try to separate a cow, you're just going to fall off because you have nothing to grab onto. You have nothing like holding you in, your knees are high up. So like, you're just going to fall off the horse.
But it would be
So that's,
safer. It would be safer if you're doing tricks so that you could fall off the correct way, right? Like when I used to work at the Ren Fair when I was a
yeah.
teenager, they had the jousts, and so I'm assuming that their saddles you wouldn't want them to be saddles that would snag you as you're trying to do like a protected fall, especially since they were wearing like at least 50 pounds of armor, which
Oh
is,
my gosh.
people don't realize that if you fall off of a horse in full armor, you will be crushed. So
Yeah, that would
you have
hurt.
to be, yeah,
That would
you have
hurt
to
a
be real
lot.
careful. You're a tank, but like you're also kind of don't want to get knocked off.
But also you're very heavy. Yeah, that's a good question. I would actually love to know because because usually the jousting horses have, the blankets on them. So you can't really even see what the saddle looks like. But
Oh, real quick.
they don't have, oh, go
Someone's
ahead.
asking for like larger
Oh,
versions of the pictures,
oh,
so here's what I'll have you do. I
mm-hmm.
will yeah, you're zooming in and stuff. But like I'll have you send me the pictures and
Okay.
I'll put them in a post so people can find all the pictures
That's
that's
a good
associated with
idea.
this on my website. So if you guys are
Yes.
looking for the pictures later and you want to see a bigger version, I'll make sure I have posted versions on my website.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, because they are kind of, yeah, I can zoom in, but it would be
Well, it's
better if they
also
can.
small on if you're watching on a phone or
Yeah,
something, I can imagine it's really small.
it's
So,
probably impossible to see, yeah, on that kind of
yeah, yeah.
thing.
So, um,
But yeah, that's basically why you want the different types is because, and then the horn, like when I was younger, I wanted a horn on my saddle because it made me feel sturdier because I could
mhm,
hold on to it. Like if I
right.
felt like,
Yeah.
oh no, I could grab onto the horn. But also I've been bucked off before,
Mhm.
and with this horn it gave me a nice bruise on my thigh once because yeah, I bashed into it when I was falling off. So there's also a downside to that. Um, but you don't, as you get better at riding, like this becomes, less necessary basically to balance you. And you can definitely still fall off. I mean, I've definitely done it, so that's not
Yeah.
going to keep
I,
you from falling off entirely.
the most I know about saddles is that I did leather tooling as a hobby for a few years and it was a lot of fun. I never made a saddle, but I like tooled part of a design that was like integrated into one at one point for a
Oh, that's
friend. But
fun.
I was never super good at it, but I just loved the little chiseling through the leather and all that kind of stuff. Very
Yeah.
tactile kind of fun hobby to have for a little while. But yeah,
Yeah, and a lot of them have this nice, like this, like a basket weave, I think they call it. Like they all have all these little leather tooling designs have names too, and I don't know them all, but
yeah,
but this is like an example of a roping saddle with that thick horn there. So it's
cool.
just yeah. So that's the number one. The number one is please do your research. Yes, and if you're riding, the Mongols, don't have them in a Western saddle. So no, maybe like it's
Well, it's a lot
just
to
do
consider
some
if you're going to
research.
be riding the Mongols, right? I
That
mean,
is true. Yes,
like
very
a
true.
horse culture is a whole thing. Like their entire
Yes.
world surrounds horses, and it's honorable to steal horses, and it's like who had the most horses has a great deal of power.
Right.
They eat, breathe, and sleep their horses, right? Even the
Mm.
modern time. If you guys want like a picture of like what it was like to be among the Mongol Empire, I really recommend Jack Weatherford's book. Genghis Khan and the Making of the Modern World. It is a fantastic book. He is both a historian and an anthropologist. So he went and lived with modern Mongol people in the steppes in this traditional way, well, in the indigenous traditions, and then also was like doing all the historical work, of who Genghis Khan was, and it's a great book because he draws on like very very recent archaeological finds and stuff. So but just he also does a really great job of really giving you an idea of what horse culture looked like for Genghis Khan growing up and what it meant to be Genghis Khan. He just, it was really kind of a very like lived history kind of research project.
It's awesome. I wrote that down because that sounds super awesome.
Well, let's get into some questions here. We've got a couple. The first one is, how do you get your horse to stand still while you are mounting?
This is a very good question.
It's like the most basic thing. Like, and
I
it's
like it
true.
because I did not anticipate any like training questions, but um yes, that is so I'm trying to think like it would be a process. I mean, anything that you want your horse to do or not do obviously will be a process. But what I would say is you have to really exercise your patience. Um, so I'm guessing if you like say you use a mounting block, I mean really anything, but let's just pretend it's a mounting block and your horse can go
What's a
360
mounting
around it
block?
because a mounting block is usually like a plastic stool or stairs to help you get on the horse. So instead of having to like hike your leg up into the stirrup and then swing up, you can like walk up the stairs and then you just sort of step in and hop over. It just makes it easier if you're not limber, which I am not limber anymore, let me tell you.
Yeah,
Um,
me neither.
so yeah, I do have a mounting block now. I didn't used to need one, but now it makes it much easier. But And yes, the horse that I just had, he did not like to stand still when mounting. So generally, horses are prey animals. So they do not work the same as dogs. So dogs work on the reward system, right? Do something correct, you get a treat, and they learn pretty fast. Horses, there are some people who say you can still do that system, but they tend to learn faster the opposite way, which means releasing pressure tends to make them get what they're supposed to do faster. So let's say you go up, you lead your horse to the mounting block, you're about to put your foot in the stirrup, and they walk off. So then what you would do is hopefully you have, so you want some space to do this exercise. But essentially, horses, especially domestic horses, are generally lazy, usually. So they don't really want to do work, which is probably why he's moving away in the first place. But you can take him out a little ways away from the mounting block, and you can just essentially have him just run some circles around you, which let me show. I mean, probably if you're asking this question, you already know this, but you could just have them in the halter and the lead rope, or have your lead rope on when you're doing this, because if you have the bridle on, the reins aren't going to be long enough for this. So you want like a longer rope. You have them run some circles around you, preferably do both sides, because if you've worked with horses, then you know basically both sides of their brain are like different horses. So you have to teach both sides of the brain.
Really?
So yeah, it's very strange, but it's so true. So have them run left a few times, have them run, it doesn't have to, a trot is fine. They don't have to be like galloping. Go left a few times, go right a few times, stop them, bring them into you, give them a nice little rub on the face, and then try to mount again. And if they try to walk off again, do the same thing. And literally just keep doing it. And they will soon figure out that if they walk off from when you're trying to mount, they have to run around. And they're going to be like, well, I don't really want to do that. Yeah. So eventually, it usually doesn't take very long, maybe like 15 minutes. They're like, oh, okay. So if I stand
if that
still,
strategy would work with my 12-year-old.
maybe you should try it. Yep, you should try it. But that's pretty much, I mean, you can pretty much use that strategy for most things you want a horse to do. So, for example, we had a horse once that didn't want to go in the trailer. So you try to get him in the trailer, they don't want to go, circles. Try again, don't want to go, circles. And then, yeah, about 15 minutes, they were like, oh, okay, so get in the trailer and I can relax. And sure enough, they went in. So that seems to work pretty well. So I would suggest that.
And a follow-up question that kind of is leaning already in there. What's your favorite training method and why?
Yeah, well, that's a good one. But this is also, so that method comes from the natural horsemanship training book, essentially. And there's several trainers. That's pretty much natural horsemanship is kind of the only way trainers work these days. When I was like in college, it was like a new thing, kind of. It was just sort of like catching on, really. And there was a bunch of people starting these natural horsemanship clinics. And my mom and I really gravitated towards those because, her stepdad was not nice to horses when he would train them. And if you have ever heard of some of the old cowboy methods of training horses, they're also pretty traumatic. And I didn't like any of those stories.
What kind of thing? I honestly don't know. What kind of methods were they using?
They would do things like they would just tie him to a post for like days, and then it didn't matter what the horse did, like if they freaked out or whatever, which obviously some of them would injure themselves, or even kill themselves, but they'd be like, whatever, they'll figure it out. And that was how they trained them to give in to pressure, halter pressure. Or they would, so sometimes people still like lay the horse down, which there are ways to do it in a gentler manner, but they would sometimes do it in a not gentle manner where they just essentially sort of like tie the horse's feet so they're sort of like forced to lay down, and then they're like, okay, I made you lay down, I'm the boss of you now. Or they would do much worse things like just beat the crap out of the horse when they didn't do things they wanted. So not great training methods for sure. But the natural horsemanship is much better because it sort of is like works from the way the horse naturally communicates with each other. And then sort of, so it's like we are speaking the horse's language instead of trying to get them to understand what we're saying in our language, because that's
Mm.
obviously very difficult for them. Like, how would they? It's just hard for them to understand because we are predator animals and they are prey animals. So
Mhm.
it's like completely different mentalities. So if
And
we,
and we have the one brain side, right? They have
yeah, we only have one brain side, exactly. It is so weird that that's so true. Like, you literally have to, if you only ever mount a horse on the left side, which is standard, everyone always mounts on the left side. But if you never ever mount a horse from the right side, if you someday just decide, I'm going to get up on this horse from the other side, and they're not like a old, super experienced horse, they'll act like they've never seen a human over there in their life. They'll be like, oh, what's going on? And you'll be like, I don't
really.
understand how, how and why. But yeah, it's just weird like that. So, but yes, natural horsemanship methods. If you look that up, the guy we used to follow all the time, his name was Clinton Anderson. So I pretty much used Clinton Anderson's method. He's an Australian trainer. Um, he was like brand new back in the day when I started watching him, but
Is he like
pretty
a
much
online kind of person you can watch? Like you can find him?
lots of YouTube videos out there. And then, of course, he has, the paid content if you want to get real deep into it. But honestly, he actually came to Kansas City one year, which is where I live. And we went to go see him in person. And then mom and I went to Tennessee for an event he was doing to like watch him train in person. And it's incredibly fascinating though. But even his free stuff, yeah, will give you tons of ideas, and he talks through it in ways that help you understand the psychology of horses, which I think is super helpful. Like, one of the things he says is, this is just an example of like horse psychology and the prey instinct. But if you're going out to catch a horse, say in the pasture, and you're walking straight at them, that can be very intimidating for a prey
Mm.
animal because, you're like walking out there with a purpose and they're like, oh God, what's happening? Especially if it's a horse that is not like your horse, right? So my mom used to board horses and I had to go out to bring a horse in, and this horse didn't know me. I had never interacted with this horse before in my life. And she was like, who are you? What are you doing? And I remembered Clinton Anderson's training. And instead of going straight at her, you don't even look at her. You go like in a zigzag, nice and slow. Don't even look at her. And she was like, oh,
Mm.
okay. And she relaxed. And I got right up to her, put the halter on, and took her inside.
Mm.
So it's just like little things like that. It's shocking how much of a difference it makes.
What other
But
kind
yeah,
of things of horse psychology are like things that people just would not they would not know? Like if I'm I mean, I know who I'm talking to if I ever decide to write a book with horses. But but like if I was like a creative person and I wanted to like understand the psychology of the horses from my book because horses were like a key feature of the fantasy novel, what kind of horse psychology? I know I do remember talking to some of the jousters about what it was like to deal with a horse in armor because I used to wear armor and fight full steel, and I never got into a horse. I was always too nervous to do that. But I do remember saying that it would take quite a while to get them used to the idea of having armor on at all, or having
yeah,
someone with armor on them. Like the whole thing of armor was like a slow like build up that you would have to kind of do. So are there other
yeah,
things like that that you'd really need to know if you're writing like horse fiction of some kind or another?
yeah. That's definitely, I think it depends on how realistic you would want to be in your book. If you're going for like pure fantasy, like unicorns and stuff, then, you can kind of just, I mean, maybe have a loose
Chocobo.
understanding of horses, but just kind of make it up, whatever you want to do. But if you are trying to be more realistic, then I think it would help to know, um, for the two brain thing is a good one because that's just so bizarre and it is so accurate. I just love how he explained it because yeah, it made understanding my own horses so much easier. And then the fact that they can be scared of literally anything. So it depends on the horse a lot. Some of them are much more reactive and some of them just do not care about anything. So one of the
Like people.
hard things, yes, it is like people. I mean, and dogs and cats are the same way, but I guess horses, since they're a larger animal, can be a little bit more intimidating to uh try to figure out, like, is this horse going to be a horse that's going to freak out over every single thing, or can I like shake a plastic bag and they don't even blink an eye? So, and the other thing to know about horses is that they pick up on your mood and emotions
Mm.
extremely well, like extremely well. Some fiction takes the telepathic horse thing a little far. If you're trying to be realistic, there are limits to it. But at the same time, I mean, it's honestly sort of creepy.
Well, it makes
um,
sense. Doesn't it make
yeah,
sense? They're a prey species. They would
yes.
naturally want to be hypersensitive to like a potential predator situation. So they're going to be paying, they probably have all kinds of cognitive maps and senses that that humans definitely don't because, we're omnivorous, but we also do a lot of predation too. So they probably have senses that help them detect danger that like we wouldn't see in cats and dogs because cats and dogs are predators.
Right. Yes, exactly. Yes, they're super aware. Like it's just so, and again, it does depend on the horse a little bit. I mean, my 31-year-old horse has been everywhere, done everything, seen everything. He does not care about literally anything. I mean, thunder, fireworks, guns. My husband pushed over this really heavy metal ladder the other day, made a
Mm-hmm.
huge clang when it hit the ground, and he didn't flinch. Like he just
Mm-hmm.
does not care. But a little bit ago I had a younger horse, he was 10, and he was all like, "Whoa, what's this? What's that? What's this? What's that?" all the time. So when one time I went to go, get him from the pasture, and he would always come up to you. Plus, if you have a horse that comes right up to you in the pasture, excellent. That's the kind you want. Not all of them do that, but he did. But even still, I went to go put his halter on, and he was like, I don't know about that. And I was like, what? And then I realized that I was a little stressed because the reason I was catching him was because he needed his hooves trimmed. So I was like on a timer. So I needed to catch him and do all these things before the farrier got there. A farrier is a person who trims a horse's hooves. And he was picking up on that like slight anxiety I had. And he was like, I don't know what's going on. So I had to like stop and like calm my inner self. I had to literally be like, let go of the stress, let go of the anxiety. You have enough time. I went back up to him. He was fine. Put his halter on, no problem. So it's like
Wow.
little tiny things like that.
Probably smell
I know
different. You probably smell
something.
different. Yeah. Well, yeah, I know our different emotional states have slight smells that probably most humans don't perceive, but animals certainly do. I mean, it's why dogs react to you differently when you're in a different mood. Like they do.
True.
I mean, I don't know
Mm-hmm.
cats. I'm deeply, deeply allergic to cats, so I don't have any. But
Oh,
dogs, I know they definitely act differently. What
yes.
there are what kind of other so someone asked a follow-up question of like what other kind of examples of telepathic ability are you speaking of? And then also like what do you mean by too far? Let's like dig into that a little bit.
Mm. So I would say, so when I say like, let's say they're taking the telepathic abilities too far, it would be like, let's say you have a character that is like a first time visitor on this ranch, and they're introduced to the horses and they're like, oh, horses, I love horses, but they don't really have experience with the horses. They don't know the horses. And then let's say later on in the book, this person that has still hardly had any interaction with a horse tells the horse, like, I don't know, something, like gives the horse a verbal command, and the horse just does it. Like, can you bring me my bag? And the horse goes to get the bag, picks it up in its mouth, and brings her the bag or something. Like that would be not realistic. But if she had spent many years with that horse and actually that was something that she trained it to do, then if she just said, "Hey, get my bag," the horse probably I mean, it could bring her the bag. I've seen him do all kinds of tricks before. But as far like the weird telepathic things, it just takes more time. The more time you spend with a horse, the more they seem to pick up on whatever your moods or whatever you're thinking. Like I've had like with the younger horse, the 10-year-old. So my 31-year-old is sort of a grumpy old man right now. So he doesn't listen to anything I say or do. He just wants his food and that's it. Which I'm like, okay, that's fine. You're retired, so you can get away with that. But the 10-year-old horse, he was extremely perceptive. So sometimes I could get him to do things essentially by thinking. So I would think, I get in this stall. I have 3 stalls in my barn. I'd be like, go ahead and get in that stall. And I would sort of like stand back and be like, there you go. And he'd be like, okay. And he'd just go in. So stuff like that. And there was one time, so my old horse is pretty much deaf. So every time I feed him, I would have to like walk out and go find him in the pasture. And then he's like, oh, food. And then he'll come back to the barn. But when I had the 10-year-old horse, there was one time I fed him and I was going to go find the old guy, but he kept looking like, where's my friend? Where's my friend? And I was like, go get him. I was like, go get him. Bring him back. Tell him it's food time. Go get him. And he sure enough took off, ran back in the pasture. And a few minutes later, they both come running back up. So
Wow.
what is that?
That's
I don't know.
that's
He
pretty
did that a few
impressive.
times. A few times. He didn't do it every single time. Sometimes I'd be like, go get him. And he just wouldn't. I'm like, oh, and I'd have to go get him. But several times he did. He would go out and go bring the old guy back. So I'm like, interesting. So
Um,
it's just like crazy stuff like that.
yeah, I mean that's really interesting. And I guess it makes sense. They learn to intuit the kind of things you want and feel, and
Right.
maybe I mean it probably would only take one time of you like yelling at them to like really make them afraid of you, like whenever they sense that emotion, right? Um, let's see. I have another question here. Um, wow, you actually kind of already answered. How do horses communicate with each other and other
Mm.
humans? What does a rider learn to read over the years working with him? Like how do you what so the horse intuits you, but how do you intuit the horse?
They communicate mostly with each other through body language. They do a little vocalization, but it's mostly body language. So once you're around horses a lot, you kind of start picking up on it. Um, like dogs have facial expressions, right? And then once you're around, especially your dog a lot, you start to know exactly what their facial expressions mean. And it's sort of the same with the horses. It's pretty clear when they're mad because their ears go flat back. So that's pretty obvious. They usually like pull they're like, and their ears go back. Okay, they don't hiss, but they bare their teeth and pin their ears, and that means they're really mad, and you better watch out because you're probably gonna get bit. Um, and obviously the kicking can be like serious or it can be less serious. And then other than that, it's usually subtle stuff. For example, my young horse, when he would want the old guy to move out of the way, because he has to eat first. So he got to the point where he would just flick his ears basically. And the old guy immediately was like, oh, get out of the way. Like it's usually like they're very like they know the little tiny cues, but you sort of pick up on that after you're around them um a while. And then yeah, they kind of read your emotions too. So
Yeah. Um
did I cover everything
yeah, no, I mean
on
that
that
I
one?
think that was a pretty good answer. And I mean we've already kind of been talking about it a little bit too. Let's see. Um so let's talk about riding. What are common fictional depictions of riding that makes experienced riders cringe?
Mm, that is a good question. I know I had an answer for it. Let's see. So I think it would be depictions of writing. For me, I think the main thing that I've seen, and it's mostly in movies, in this particular thing, but sometimes they get actors that clearly do not know how to write. So, you will see like a writer galloping. It's usually at the gallop. If the gallop is when you can tell that people don't know how to ride, because they will be like flopping around like this when the horse is running,
Like
and
I
you're like,
was once.
oh, yeah, you're like, that looks so painful because they're just like, oh, kind of like all over in the saddle. And then sometimes you can see like, oh, that person really knows how to ride because they'll be flat out gallop and they're like completely smooth. Like that rider is not flopping all over the saddle, and that's how you know they know how to ride. So it's usually that in film is like, oh, couldn't you like, I don't know, get them some more lessons or something so that it doesn't look so painful. And then uh in books, I would say it's usually just like they'll gallop somewhere, uh like a long time. Like they'll just be like, let's just gallop to the next town, and it's like 100 miles away. And it's like, your horse will be dead. Like you cannot gallop 100 miles to the next town, you know?
Well, that's a good question,
Um,
actually. Like, I mean, you see movie. I know the Mongols had like a really specific strategy so they could do 100 miles in a
mhm.
day, where they would switch off. They had like a string of horses, and they would switch off
Yes.
so that they could continue to keep them running for long, long distances on mounts, for battle and stuff. And it was like one of the big things that the Mongols brought to the battlefield that was like completely like overwhelming to the other armies because they had no experience doing anything like that. So, but how long could like a horse? So, how long can a horse can like trot, walk, and then like full on gallop?
I wondered if you asked that question, so let me get my prepared notes because I don't have it memorized. I do remember though that a horse can really only gallop like top speed for like 2.5 miles before they really start getting strained. If you push them, they'll keep going, but if you keep pushing them, they will go until they like just drop. And at that point, they're probably going to die unless you get a medical treatment. So don't
Wow,
do that.
really?
But it's just like the Pony Express or like the Mongols. If you're running flat out and then you switch horses and then that obviously works. You can go a long, long way like that. Just running as fast as you can, but swapping your horses. But they can go, if you're not full on galloping, they can go a lot further. The trot is the most efficient gait basically, so they can go the longest at a trot. Well, I mean walking, but that is so slow. So they only walk 4 miles an hour, 3 to 4 miles an hour. So you're not going to get very far at that pace. But the trot, I think the average is about 10 miles an hour, so
Mhm.
it's quite a bit faster, and they can maintain it for a lot longer.
It's like it's
Trying
a
to
bike.
find
It's like walking as a human versus being on a bike almost.
right, yes, and I think it's the same. I think because I remember a long time ago when I would do uh research on wolves. I remember that same thing for wolves. Like when they travel long distances, they usually trot because it's a very like efficient, energy efficient gait. I'm trying to see where did I have it here? Of course, now I can't find it. But anyway, oh, here we go. So trot is 10 miles an hour. A canter, which is like not a gallop, but it's faster than a trot, is 15 miles an hour. And then a gallop, usually the average horse is 20 miles an hour for a normal gallop. They can probably go, I mean, if they're really booking it, they can probably get a little faster than that, um, but yes. So wild horses wander about 20 miles a day, but they're not running usually. They're usually walking, maybe some trotting, maybe some cantering, a lot of
Playing.
grazing.
A lot of
Yeah.
playing.
Yeah, a lot
Um,
of playing,
I lived and
sparring.
worked down on Ute Mountain Ute Reservation with the Ute tribe for 10 weeks one summer, and I think it was 8 weeks another summer. And you're down there, and there are wild horses all over the place. So, I mean, they would come into our camp, all kinds of stuff. So, um,
Oh,
well,
I
not
love,
that
I love
close, but they would like come pretty close.
it.
We had mountain lion problems too, but it was just a whole
Oh
different.
my.
But but yeah,
Scary.
like every time I swear, every time I saw them, they were like playing with each other, like they were just like having a
Hmm.
great grand old time.
They
So
do. Yes.
um,
Nice.
someone asked, "Do all horse breeds have the same gaits? I've seen some cart
Mm,
horses have a strange gait."
yes. So, not all horses have the same gaits, but if you see any kind of, so the four regular gaits that all horses have is the walk, trot, canter, and gallop. And then some horses do have other gaits that do look very strange when they do them. And those are called gaited horses, Gaited. So if it's a gaited horse, they have a natural ability to do those unusual gaits. I don't understand how that works, or um that boggles my mind. The young horse, the 10-year-old I've been saying, he was a gaited horse. He was the breed is called a spotted saddle horse. I don't exactly know what his gait is called. It looked like it was just so weird. Like his front legs would sort of go like this, but his back legs were going like this. But when you rode him when he did that, it was smooth. It was like you were gliding over the ground and it was real fast.
Is there
It
like an
was the
advantage
craziest.
for them to do that?
I am not sure if there's an advantage to them. There's an advantage to the rider because it's a
It's
lot
better.
more comfortable because it's
Mm.
so smooth. I mean, it's just I just can't even. It's like how am I on a horse right now? It's so crazy.
This horse, right?
There's
Or
like,
the little kid
ooh,
horse, let's say, not necessarily the
yeah.
princess. Because there's plenty
There's
of
like
men who
no
need a princess horse too.
jouncing.
Let's be honest.
That's true. That's true. Very true.
Probably
Yes.
me.
Oh my gosh. Yes. There could be, I think, but a lot of the gaited horses naturally prefer to go into their unusual gait. So it must also be energy efficient because otherwise I would think they would need a lot more prompting to like go into that gait. But like
Yeah.
my guy, I mean, it was you could almost not make him not do his gait. Like he just wanted to do it like all the time. So it must be comfortable for them, even though it doesn't look comfortable. It's comfortable to ride, but if you watch him just do it across the field, you're like, what's happening? But yes, those are gaited
Did he
horses.
grow an
There's a
extra
whole
leg?
yeah, you're like, how is that working exactly? But yes, there's like I think those cart horses that do the very interesting long trot. Believe that's called a rack. I think that's what that gait is called, but there's a couple different ones and I can't remember all the different names, but I was trying to look it up one day because I was trying to figure out what my horse was doing. There's a rack, a single foot, and a running walk, apparently. I think my guy was doing the running walk. I think that's what he was doing.
Yeah.
But
Final
yeah,
call
only
for
certain breeds can
questions.
do that. So
Final call for questions. If you have your questions, put them in the chat. We'll go a few more minutes and then we'll kind of wrap up here. But yeah, if you haven't gotten to ask anything about horses you wanted to know, now's the time.
let's go ahead.
Do cowboys ride gaited horses? Was the next question.
That's awesome. Could. They totally could. I don't know if I personally know any who did, but I mean they certainly could. I think I have seen have I? trying to think if I'm on a lot of horse Facebook groups of people, because when I was looking for a horse, I joined all these groups and now I'm still in them and I still see all these horses for sale. I'm trying to think if I saw any. There's a lot of Tennessee walking horses on those groups, and those are gaited horses, and they're usually bigger, like 15 to 16 hands, so taller. But I'm trying to think if any of those were on ranches. I'm not sure. I don't see any reason why they couldn't, honestly. I mean, if they want a comfy ride, they want a comfy ride. So,
Yeah.
and I mean, they're pretty, as long as the horses, I mean, I've seen, small horses be like ranch horses, bigger horses be ranch horses. So, as long as their personality fits the job they're doing, then they're pretty versatile. So,
And I do know that like the horses that actually had armor on them and, armored knights are much larger than the ones you see in Hollywood.
yes,
Because a lot of that armor in
yes,
Hollywood
that
is
is very true.
plastic these days. I mean, there's some that they'll have metal or they'll have like a metal covering over, like just things in
Right.
place because like
Yeah.
people do not realize. So armor's heavy, people can intuit that, but they don't know what it does to you. So it's not like lifting a barbell. Wearing armor is like your entire body is slower and heavier, and it's just like it takes like twice as much energy to move. It's like suddenly it's like you're the same person with the same muscles, and suddenly you have another 60, 70, 80 pounds on your body.
Yeah.
That's so it's not like you can't move, it's that you're a little slower to move and you get tired really freaking fast. Like I
Yeah.
think after like a half an hour in armor, even having done it for a while, I would be like, I I don't want to have the armor on anymore.
You're like, and I am done. Get this off
Yeah,
of me.
yeah, and like
Oh
you
my
you
gosh.
sleep really well after those nights.
I bet.
So also
I
obviously
bet.
horses have you can't have like a little horse. It's got to be a big, strong horse to carry
Yes.
all that extra weight.
For sure. Yes. And that is a good point too, because like Arabians are usually smaller horses and they're sort of like fine boned because they're, originated in the desert. So
Mhm.
they're like small, fast, just because, it's hot. It's better for them if they're like have that body type versus if they're like big, massive beasts.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, that would, I mean, I'm sure some, the thing is, as soon as you're like, you wouldn't want an Arabian as a ranch horse, somebody would say, I have an Arabian as a ranch horse. So again, you never know. But I would be interested to see how many Arabians are doing like ranch work because they're so they're so small boned. I'm sure they could though.
Well, it makes sense
But yeah,
because in the
that's an interesting
desert,
point.
less need for water. I mean, like that's obviously something like maybe you don't intuit too is that different horses are going to be better for different kinds of climates. And I know
Yes, very much
that
so.
one of the reasons that the Mongols didn't conquer Europe was because of their bows were not equipped for the higher rate of humidity and their horses were not equipped for the higher rate of humidity. And that's like in Weatherfoot's book he
Mhm.
talks about how like the very technology that made them superior over every foe when they got to Poland suddenly was a problem and they had to start to
Yeah.
adjust and they had to get other
Yep.
horses and different kind of bow systems and they were getting onto that and then the Black Death hits and shatters the
Yeah.
empire and they have to stop.
Right. Yes. Yep. That is also something to think about. What is the environment that your horses are going to be in, whether that is, modern or ancient or fantasy or sci-fi. Like, what is the environment and how we got what breed would be best for that environment, or if it's fantasy breed, if you make up your own, consider like how would it have adjusted to its environment? And yeah, it may not be super great in a different environment. So,
Here's a tough question for you.
oh
What
boy.
breed would have been really ideal for running on the top of a spaceship in that shitty Star Wars scene?
Oh my God. Oh,
It's like horses, really? Why?
steak. Okay, see, this is gonna be my excuse, my reasoning. Okay, so those things looked sort of more like goats. So maybe they're thinking like the mountain goats where they have like little suction cup hooves.
Hmm.
So maybe their goat hooves are holding them onto the surface of the spaceship. I don't know.
Star
It's the
Wars doesn't
best we
really
can
follow a
come up
lot of
with.
rules with
It does
spaceships
not.
and gravity. Like when your
Oh,
ship starts immediately to sink in the space, like it doesn't make any
that's
sense. Like
so true.
it's like
That's
sure if
so
you're in
true.
gravity well, but like
And
a lot
like,
of times they're not.
mhm,
Or
this is
the
very
the
true.
droids get knocked off. I think it was like episode 2.
Yeah.
The droids get knocked off in
Uh-huh.
space, and you're like,
Yes.
"There's no
Right.
friction in this." The
Yes, I do remember that. Yep. They're like scoot off as if there's air. Yes.
Right. Well, no, they like fly off as if they were like shot off and they're
Oh,
like
yeah.
on a
Yep.
planet.
Some of them do. Yes. This is true.
So,
Yep. I do remember that.
yeah. Okay.
Yes.
So,
So
final
remember physics.
thoughts. So, final thoughts. What would be some important takeaways for people? Like maybe just a couple of quick things for them to be thinking about if they want to include horses in their fiction and they know very little.
Hmm. I would say don't assume things. Go ahead and do the research because, for example, the wrong saddles. Like, don't assume a saddle is a saddle. It's all the same. It definitely is not. Don't assume all horses are the same. They definitely are not. There's differences in the breeds. There's differences from horse to horse. I mean, personalities can be drastically different. Breeds are drastically different. Consider, yeah, your environment. If you're going to be in some different kind of environment, like we've been talking about, what breed would be appropriate for that environment. Um, just please do your research. Um, Yeah, like yeah. One of the other things I see a lot is that people call a halter a harness. So a halter is not a harness. And a harness is not a halter. So a very simple search, what is the thing they put on horses' faces to lead them around, will get you halter. Um, but yes, and if you have any other questions, you can always message me. I would love to help you out with your horse stuff. So
Yeah.
always, if you know anyone, you can always ask them.
So, what was that guy's name? The trainer horse
Oh yeah,
guy was name
Clinton Anderson.
Clinton Anderson, and you can find him on
Mhm.
YouTube.
It should be on YouTube. If you Google search him, he probably has all kinds of other stuff now
Yeah.
too. I haven't even searched him up for a few years now, but
Yeah.
yes, he'll have a lot of videos.
And any other like books or resources you recommend, maybe as a starting point for people?
It's a good question. I don't really think I have books necessarily, unless you just go, like I have on my bookshelf. What is it called? Let me see. There's just a book called A Passion for Horses that I have on my bookshelf, and it's just like a giant full color, almost like picture book. It just has a bunch of pictures of different breeds of horses and like a little bit about each breed. And I've liked books like that since I was a kid. I've had all kinds of different variations. But maybe something like that, you could just go into like your local bookstore. And if you go under, I don't know how they would put what section they would put under. Would it be like information or, animals or something? But just find like a book that has good pictures. I don't know why, but that really is, I mean, I think horses are beautiful anyway. So you can look at the pretty horses and you can learn stuff about each breed and you can sort of see like the physical differences between them all. So I think those are pretty helpful.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Like I knew very little about horses, and I feel like I learned an awful lot of things. Like I am going to
Oh,
be thinking
good.
about that two brain thing for a while.
Yes. And if
I feel like
you,
there's a sci-fi story there.
it could be, oh, it could, yeah, you could do something really fun with that, honestly, in the sci-fi for sure. But yeah, if you watch any of Clinton's videos, I'm sure he'll mention it several times. So you'll
Cool.
get to hear it.
Yeah, so thank you so much and appreciate having you on. And definitely check out your Kickstarter. The link's already here in
Oh,
the
yes.
info for the Kickstarter for this film, so you can support Jenny here and check out her own fiction. There's some cool
Yeah.
stuff in her own fiction. So what's give the name of your books real quick.
Yeah, so I have a comedic space opera trilogy called Starship Ass is the name of the series. It features an actual donkey. So there's an actual donkey in space. So a lot of the equine stuff does come up because the main character is a donkey. So that definitely is a factor. And and then the other series is The Legacy of Lucky Logan, which is like a weird Western, sci-fi Western type of series. And that will be 6 books total. I'm currently working on book 5. And that one also obviously has a lot of horses in it because it is Western heavy. So lots of
All
stuff in
right.
there.
And as always, you can find tons of free world building resources on my website, liridianslaboratory.com, and check out Build Better Worlds, an introduction to anthropology for game designers, fiction writers, and filmmakers if you want a deeper dive into using social science for your world building. So thanks so much. Our next guest is an Egyptologist. So we'll be talking about ancient cultures, archaeology, and Egyptology. And I will have that up scheduled pretty soon. It's going to be June 2nd. So look for my YouTube channel and subscribe if you want to follow that episode.
I
Thanks,
do. I'll
everyone.
be there. Yes. Thank you, everyone. And thank you for having me on. It was so fun.